So, Indra, you run a company with 300,000 employees, almost $70 billion in revenues. You come home one day as president of the company, just appointed, and your mom's not that impressed. Will you tell that story?
This was about 14 years ago, and I was working in the office. I worked very late, and we were in the middle of the Quaker Oats integration, or the acquisition. And I got a call at about 9:30 in the night from the existing chairman and CEO at that time, and said to me that, Indra, we're going to announce you as president and put you on the board of directors of PepsiCo. I mean, I was overwhelmed because, look at my background, where I came from. To be president of an iconic American company and to be on the board of directors, I mean, I thought it was just something special had happened to me. So rather than stay and work till midnight, which I really would have done because I had so much work to do, I decided to go home and share the good news with my family. So I got home at about 10, parked the car, got into the garage, and my mother was waiting at the top of the stairs. And I said to her, Mom, I got great news for you. And she said, well, then let the news wait. Can you go out and get some milk? I said to Mom, look, I looked in the garage. Looks like my husband is home. What time did he get home? She said, 8 o'clock. I said, why didn't you ask him to buy the milk? Because he's tired. Okay, he's tired. He's tired. We have a couple of help at home. Why didn't you ask them to get the milk? She said, because I forgot. I said, okay, fine. She said, just go get the milk. We need it for the morning. So I, like a dutiful daughter, I went out and got the milk and came back. I sort of banged it on the counter and I said, I had great news for you. I've just been told that I'm going to be president and on the board of directors. And all that you want me to do is to go out and get the milk. What kind of a mom are you? And she said to me, let me explain something to you. You might be president of PepsiCo, you might be on the board of directors, but when you enter this house, you're the wife, you're the daughter, you're the daughter-in-law, you're the mother, you're all of that. Nobody else can take that place. So leave that damn crown in the garage and don't bring it into the house. Now, I have to tell you, David, I've never seen that crown. I've never seen it. Between my husband and my kids, they've hidden it, so I haven't seen it ever.
Now that you look back, Indra, could you see that your mother was ambitious for you? Was she ambitious for you? And how did she convey either ambition or the possibility that the world was your oyster?
We grew up, my sister and I have an older sister that's known to many people here, and very smart, a year older than I and myself. And we have a much younger brother. The two of us grew up in a very, very strict, conservative family. My mother never went to college because her parents didn't have the money to send her to college, and she was very smart. So she lived her life vicariously through the daughters. She would ask us to dream and be whatever we wanted. At the same time, she would say, at 18, I'm going to find a guy and marry you off. So it was this constant conflict at home. She's going to find a guy and say, you got to marry him. At the same time, she says, dream big. Every night at dinner, we would sit down and we would eat first, and then my mother would sit down to eat, and she would ask the two girls to prepare a speech on, if you were president of the country, what would you do? If you were prime minister of the country, what would you do? At the end of the dinner, we had to give the speech, and she would decide who she's going to vote for. So here is a mom who's suggesting all these and putting us through the paces on these aspirational jobs. At the same time, she's threatening us to find some vague guy and marry him off to us at age 18. And so we always lived in that fear that that could happen. But I think the men in our family, my grandfather and my father, basically put their foot down and said, I don't care if it's girls or boys. They all have to have an equal shot at being whatever they want to be. And we're not going to get them married off at 18. We're going to let them do what they want to do.
Let me shift from PepsiCo back to you again. We have the now globally famous Anne-Marie Slaughter here in the audience. And 2 years ago, she wrote for The New Yorker a perfectly edited, perfectly written story on why women can't have it all. Wait, did I say for The New Yorker? It was actually for The Atlantic. It was a perfectly written, perfectly edited story. So give us your thoughts. You must have been intellectually part of the debate. What's your thought about whether women can have it all?
I read the article. I thought it was one of the most brilliantly written articles.
I can't hear you. One more time.
It was the most unbelievably written article. And you know what? Kudos to the chairman of Atlantic who published it. So, David, I
think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for having us today.
But I think Anne-Marie's onto something. I don't think women can have it all. I just don't think so. We pretend we have it all. We pretend we can have it all. My husband and I married for 34 years, and we have 2 daughters. And every day you have to make a decision on whether you are going to be a wife or a mother. In fact, many times during the day, you have to make those decisions. And you have to co-opt a lot of people to help you. We co-opted our families to help us. We plan our lives meticulously so we can be decent parents. But if you ask our daughters, I'm not sure they will say that I've been a good mom. I'm not sure. And I try all kinds of coping mechanisms. I mean, I'll tell you a story that happened when my daughter went to Catholic school, Convent of Sacred Heart. And every Wednesday morning, they have class coffee with mothers. Class coffee with mothers for a working woman. How is it going to work? How am I going to take off 9 o'clock on Wednesday mornings to go for a class coffee? So I miss most class coffees. My daughter would come home and she'll say, list of all the mothers that were there, and you were not their mom. First few times, I would die with guilt. But I developed coping mechanisms. I called the school and I said, give me a list of mothers who were not there. So when she came home in the evening, she'd say, you were not there, you were not there. I said, Mrs. Rag wasn't there, Mrs. So-and-so wasn't there, so I'm not the only bad mother. You have to cope because you die with guilt. You just die with guilt. My observation, David, is that the biological clock and the career clock are in total conflict with each other. Total, complete conflict. When you have to have kids, you have to build your career. Just as you're rising to middle management, your kids need you because they're teenagers, they need you for the teenage years. And that's the time your husband becomes a teenager too. So he needs you. Sorry. They need you too. So what do? And as you grow even more, your parents need you because they're aging. So we're screwed. I mean, we cannot have it all. But you know what? Coping mechanisms. Train people at work. Train your family to be your extended family. When I'm in PepsiCo, I travel a lot, and when my kids were tiny, especially my second one, we had strict rules on playing Nintendo. She'd call the office. She didn't care whether I was in China or Japan or India, wherever. She'd call the office. The receptionist would pick up the phone. Can I speak to my mommy? Everybody knows if somebody says, can I speak to mommy, it's my daughter. So she'd say, yes, Tara, what can I do for you? I want to play Nintendo. And the receptionist has a set of questions. Have you finished your homework, You see, I say this because that's what it takes. She goes through the questions and she says, okay, you can play Nintendo half an hour. But she leaves me a message. Tara called at 5. This is what the sequence of questions I went through. I've given her permission. So it's seamless parenting. But if you don't do that, I'm serious. If you don't develop mechanisms with your secretaries, with the extended office, with everybody around you, it cannot work. It can't. Motherhood, stay-at-home mothering was a full-time job. Being a CEO of a company is 3 full-time jobs rolled into one. How can you do justice to all? You can't. The person that hurts the most with this whole thing is your spouse. There's no question about it. Raj always says, you know what, your list is PepsiCo, 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 your 2 kids, our 2 kids, your mom, and then in the bottom of the list is me. There are 2 ways to look at it. You should be happy you're on the list. So don't complain. Just don't complain. He is on the list, very much on the list. But, sorry, David.
It's just so reminiscent of my own life, so.